On today's episode of I Don't Work Here Lady, a girl at Target gets mistaken for an employee by a manager. Then, a Karen screams at a blind man. After that, a man in a hardware store meets a Karen with a potty mouth. And finally, the most dense Karen at the scene of a massive fire demands service. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to never miss another video. And the first story is called, If I Work Here, Then What's My Name? I discovered this sub not too long ago, and another person's post about mistaken identity at Walmart reminded me of this story of my own. When I was around the age of 23, my favorite outfit that I owned was a red shirt and a pair of tan corduroy pants. More than once I wore that outfit on a shopping trip to Target. My mistake never dawned on me, until inevitably a customer stopped me and asked some question or other. Generally, I just try to be polite and point them in the direction of an actual employee. My favorite time though, was the time I got chewed out by a manager. I was browsing the Lego sets and texting on my phone, just minding my own business. Occasionally someone else would enter or leave the aisle, but I paid them no mind, so I really didn't notice that there was anyone close by. Then, suddenly a voice right behind me loudly whispers, "Are you kidding me? Hiding in the toys on your phone?" I spun around to find a very angry, late middle-aged woman. She held out her hand and demanded, "Give it to me." I just stared at her, thoroughly confused. She snapped her fingers and said, "Now!" And when I still didn't oblige, she actually made a grab for my phone. I jerked my phone away out of her reach and asked her if she was crazy. Her response, "Do not speak to me that way. You know good and well that you can't have your phone out while on the clock. Give me your phone and you can have it back after your shift." It dawned on me what her mistake was and why she'd made it. I was wearing my red shirt and tan cords. The conversation goes as follows. "Oh, no, I don't work for you." "Excuse me?" "I mean, I don't work here, for Target." "Not after this you won't. Never have I dealt with such a disrespectful..." "Ma'am, I do not work here." "Yes you do. You're just trying to avoid getting in trouble." "If I work here, then what's my name?" Manager lady just blank stares at me. "If I work here, then where's my name tag? How long have I worked here? What's my shift? Surely we would have worked together before this. You would know me." "I don't." "Well, I can't be expected to remember every single one of you." "Lady, this," gesturing to my clothes, "was just an unfortunate accident on my part. I do not work here." She just stared at me for another beat or two, crossed her arms, and squinted at me skeptically. "You're lying." I threw up my hands and said, "Whatever. I'm leaving now." I turned and made my way to the front of the store. Was that the end of it? Oh no. That jerk followed me the whole way, demanding I stop and follow her to the office. I walked right out and went straight to my car. Thankfully, she didn't follow me beyond the store's entrance. I can just imagine her confusion and frustration as she went back and tried to figure out which of her employees I was. I only wish that I'd thought of submitting a complaint to corporate about her at the time. Story number 2 is called, Once Again, I'm Blind, Not Busy. I posted on here once before about someone grabbing my arm at a grocery store as a teenager. That was a long time ago, but I've had a new experience more recently. I've only been in my new place for a few months, but I live a short distance from a grocery store. Since I can't drive, it's nice to be able to get to the grocery store and get fresh produce without even having to cross the street. That's even nicer since I'm legally blind. I used to travel with a service dog, but he retired due to old age. So now I'm back to working with a white cane. There's a lot of different white canes out there for blind people. Some of them fold up like a tent pole, others are spring-loaded and extend like a telescope, and others are just a long piece of plastic with a simple handle. When it's warmer outside, I use the long plastic one because it's very light and easy to use even if I have something in that hand. Ultimately, the job of this cane is to keep me from running into something while I walk down the short pathway from my front door to the grocery store. Obstacles along that path could include traffic cones, storm drains, mailboxes, parked cars, and other stuff that you could encounter and accidentally walk into if you can't see well like me. I'm on my way home from the grocery store, a large bag of groceries in one hand and my cane in the other. As I'm walking, I'm tapping my cane on the ground in the approximate spot that my foot will be landing in the next step. There's no sidewalk, but there's a pretty wide slanted gutter thing that's nice enough to follow and get home. All of a sudden, I hear someone yell from across the street, "What are you doing?" Figuring that no sane person would question the motives of a blind guy just walking down his driveway, I just kept going. I hear footsteps, and the person who shouted gets in front of me, and I almost run into them. Once again, they ask in an accusatory manner what the hell I'm doing. "I'm just going home," I said. "Are you spraying something?" the crazy lady asks. "No, I'm just walking home," I repeat. "Then what's that thing for?" she says. "This?" I ask, holding up my cane. "This is a cane." "Are you with the groundskeeping crew?" "No, lady, I'm not with the groundskeeping crew." "Then why are you even here?" she gestures wildly. "For the third time, lady, I'm walking home." At this point, I walk past her and go home. I make sure to lock my doors in case she tries to follow me. Once again, I'm left wondering how sighted people can be so blind to the world around them. Story number 3 is called, "Are You Goddamn Deaf?" And real quick guys, this story uses a lot of the word goddamn. So if you're sensitive to that word, then it'll be best to move on to the next story. And with that being said, let's get right into it. So I'm usually a very polite, conflict-averse person, but on this particular day, I was sleep deprived and had a horrible day at the office, drank way too much coffee to compensate, and as a result, was kinda on edge. It was freezing outside, so on my way home, I decided to finally buy a portable heater for my bedroom. I stopped at a hardware store and was crouched down in one of the aisles looking at the various heaters on the bottom shelf. "Hey, I need to find the bathroom fittings," came a voice from behind me. I clearly heard what the woman said, but assumed she was talking to a shop employee somewhere behind me. Hello, bathroom fittings," she repeated, using that entitled Princess Gets What She Wants tone. I was dressed in suit and tie, so surely she wouldn't be confusing me for a hardware store employee. I kept looking at the heaters in my hand. "Hey," she tapped me heavily on the shoulder twice, so I looked back over my shoulder at her. I saw a mid-30s mother, dressed like she's going to meet the president, inch-thick layer of makeup covering her face, holding her 2-year-old on her hip, and she looked pissed. "Yes?" was all I got out, not expecting the physical contact. "Are you goddamn deaf? Where are the bathroom fittings?" Like I said, I'm always polite and would never purposely start a fight with a stranger, but her words, tone, and face instantly annoyed the hell out of me. Being already in a bad mood from dealing with people at work, I immediately decided for some reason that there was no way I was going to tell her I didn't work here. I don't know why, but I seemed to think she didn't deserve to know if she wasn't going to treat someone with basic human respect. "Well, that's rude," I said. That pushed her over the edge. She started yelling. "What's goddamn rude is you goddamn ignoring me when it's your goddamn job to help me. Are you going to tell me where the bathroom fittings are, or do I need to go find someone who isn't the R word?" And she stared, hand on hip, as if I somehow didn't realize that she actually does deserve anything she demands. Why would I help someone who's screaming at me? You have no idea how to treat people properly, do you? I said, getting annoyed. After more yelling, she threatened to get my goddamn manager onto me and that I'll lose my goddamn job not helping a customer. People around were starting to stare. I gotta admit, something in my head snapped and I upped my volume about 10 times. "Hey, be my guest. Get the manager. See if I care. Just piss off. Seriously, stop yelling at me. Go away." She stood there silent for a couple of seconds in disbelief that I said that, then stormed off yelling and cursing that I'll be fired, etc. All the while her child was visibly stressing out at all the yelling happening right in his ear. So I go back to looking at heaters, trying to get my adrenaline levels back to normal. I choose one, and after browsing for another few minutes, I head to the cashier at the front. And standing there in line is Mrs. Moron and her kid. There's nobody behind her, and I walk up and take the next place in line, wondering if she'll notice me. When it's her turn, she goes up to the cashier and unloads her stuff. But it's fairly noisy in the shop, so she can't hear the cashier ask her if she was paying by cash or card. She got flustered and told him twice to repeat. I couldn't help myself. I leaned over and said, "Cash or card? Are you goddamn deaf?" She got startled, looked over and recognized that it was me, the unhelpful employee, and started yelling at the cashier that I was the worst store assistant she'd ever met, that I should be fired for giving the store a bad name, etc. The cashier looked at me, standing in line with heater and wallet in hand, and said, "Ma'am, he's a customer." No, he works here, and he refused to help me. She trailed off, realizing that everything about me indicated my doesn't work here status. She swiped her card, grabbed her stuff, and left without another word. I had a laugh with the cashier after explaining what had happened. Story number 4 is called, There Was a Fire. I'm a fire investigator for insurance companies. I was working a fire in an auto body shop in the middle of nowhere. I spend most of my days alone working, and this one was no different. I'd been there 4 or 5 hours at this point, and I was digging through some debris looking for an alligator clamp to a battery charger under what was left of this car they'd left to charge overnight. The fire happened in the middle of the night, so the fire department had cut through the overhead doors in order to get inside. And since it was much easier to just take off the plywood they used to cover the hole in the door and climb through, that's what I did. The inside was coated with smoke, and 3 cars had essentially been completely burned. So I'm kneeling on the ground with a shovel in my hand, covered in ash, when I hear a voice say, "Hello, is anyone there?" Which scared the ever-loving crap out of me. Being alone for hours in a dark, burnt building can leave you a little on edge. I get up from what I was doing, and there's a lady standing about 4 feet away from me. She looks me up and down and says, "What happened here?" I kind of glanced around and said, there was a fire." She said, "Oh, that sucks." Then tossed me her keys and said, "I need an oil change and a tire rotation." I told her that I didn't work here, that I was a fire investigator, and that the place wouldn't be open for a while, since, they had a massive fire she had to climb through a cut-open overhead door to get into. She then asked me, "Well, when will you guys be open? You can just do it then." I again told her I didn't work there, I was the fire investigator, and that she'd have to come back later when the actual owners of the place were there, and it wasn't just me by myself. Mind you, I'm wearing a fire helmet, fire boots, and latex gloves. And it wasn't like this was a small fire. This place was cooked. I handed her back her keys, and she just kind of gave me a weird look and said, "Oh, okay," and then climbed back through the cut open overhead door. It was one of the weirdest moments I've ever had on a scene. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Let me know what you guys think about these stories in the comment section below. And as always, be sure to smash that like button. And I'll see you guys in the next video.